For this illustration, we're going to put what we learned in the watercolor techniques lesson to use. So be sure to watch that fully before trying this to make it much easier for you. Keep in mind that there are infinite ways in which this can be done, but don't be afraid to copy me exactly either. Copying is a great way to learn. I start by using water, to which I add a little bit of paint so you can see it, and make a simple flower shape by using 2 strokes for each petal. And then I drop color in using wet on wet technique. It's up to you what colors you use, but remember that you can move the paint around by guiding it gently with your brush. I paint in another flower shape, and while both of them are still wet, I paint in a large outline of a floral shape. Notice how simple it is, and where it touches the previous flowers, the paint blends and moves. I drop more color into it and continue painting like this. Notice how loose I am, and all the shapes overlap in one layer and create a beautiful gradients where they touch. I then add some smaller flowers all around the composition to make it more balanced, and notice how I stuck to 3 colors in the whole piece. These colors sit right next to each other on the color wheel, so they're very harmonious together. This really helps to keep things unified. Also, notice how I greatly varied the sizes and shapes of the flowers. This really helps give complexity to the piece, even though it's so simple, and makes it much more interesting. I finish off the watercolors by adding a simple splatter, and then I use a paper towel to add texture by simply dabbing it into the wet watercolors. Once everything is dry, I can start doodling with my micron pen. This time it's different because we already have the florals defined, and I'm just adding small details to make each flower unique and interesting. Since the floral shapes already exist, you can be as abstract and experimental as you want. Sometimes all you have to do is add a tiny detail or a center. Don't outline every flower perfectly or outline every flower at all. It's much more fun if your ink deviates from the watercolor shapes and adds on instead of defines. I'm being super playful with every stroke, and I'm not overthinking it. Notice how in this flower I use the curved line pattern. Can you tell why it's my favorite pattern? But also notice how abstract it is. I'm not making perfect outlines of the petals. They don't even look like petals. Also notice how each design is different and yet utilizes the same simple lines and patterns. With this flower, I didn't follow the shape and instead made my own unique petals. This gives it a cool effect with 2 different shapes overlapping, but showing different flowers. Also make each tiny flower unique. I don't copy the same thing over and over, though that could look cool. Now this middle shape is huge and it has endless possibilities. I choose to do a fun pattern inside it, but not filling in the whole shape. And notice how I treat the watercolor parts as if they're solid parts by drawing the lines as if they're coming from behind it. The white space, the pattern, and the watercolor all play with each other so well here. This gives it a really cool and surreal effect and also adds dimension. It's good to use a similar style in your illustration to keep it unified. So I finished the flower by making one side of its petal in the repeating lines pattern. Now since there are some dark parts in the watercolors, I can add details with my white gel pen to heighten the contrast and make the illustration even more interesting. This really helps to make things pop and adds a lot of dimension and detail. I do so sparingly and use only simple shapes and lines. Once I feel like the composition is complete, I stop. It's up to you if you want to make yours even more detailed or more minimal than mine. Listen to your own inner artistic voice and style, and don't overthink it. The result is gorgeous and so fun. It was really easy to do even if you don't have much experience in drawing or painting. After all, everyone can doodle. Just let yourself do whatever you want and have fun. I can't wait to see what you create. Now let's make a floral composition that is a little bit more complex, but I know you can do it.